When the fire chief arrived and saw the old man, his face went pale. "Frank Morrison?" he said in disbelief. "When dispatch told me someone had gone into the woods with a search and rescue dog, there was only one person I could think of who'd be crazy enough to try it." The basketball kids who had been mocking him minutes earlier suddenly realized they had no idea who they'd been talking to. Frank Morrison, 78 years old, sat quietly on a wooden bench at the edge of the park. Beside him lay Rex, a 12-year-old German shepherd with graying fur, resting calmly with half-closed eyes. Both appeared completely peaceful, exactly as everyone saw them. Two old, useless creatures who had outlived their purpose. But none of them knew who they really were. Frank's silence only made the young man angrier. His friends had gathered around. Phones out. "Bro, I'm recording this old guy. I'll post it on social media. How old people invade young people's spaces." Rex lifted his ear slightly, but didn't move. 12 years ago, in a situation like this, he would have already gone into alert mode. But now things were different. He was old, tired, and most importantly, retired. "Boys," Frank finally spoke, his voice low and calm. "This park belongs to all of us. I pay taxes too." One of the young men, about 22, athletic build, stepped forward. "Look, old man, we're trying to work out here. People your age should stay home, watch TV. Besides, that dog of yours looks ancient. Probably sick too. Might spread something to others." Frank's hand automatically went to Rex's head. The dog's skull was still magnificent. Classic German shepherd lines, intelligent eyes, alert ears. But yes, he was old now, just like himself. "Rex isn't sick," Frank said. "Just old." "Rex," one of the kids laughed. "What left over from dinosaur times? Look how he's panting." Actually, Rex wasn't panting. He was just resting. But what was the point of explaining? On the other side of the park, families were having picnics. Children running around, parents preparing barbecues, elderly couples reading books under the shade. A normal summer day, until they saw the smoke on the horizon at 81st. Nobody paid attention. It was summer. Maybe someone was burning leaves in their yard. But the smoke quickly thickened, and when the wind shifted direction, foam-like white clouds began appearing over the park, and Frank's nose twitched. That smell. Rex suddenly sat up straight, raised his head, and took a deep breath. They both understood at the same moment. Wildfire. "All right, Grandpa, fun's over," said the basketball kid. "Time to get out of here." But Frank was already standing. Rex was up too, ears erect, body tense. Within 30 seconds, two old creatures had transformed into something completely different. "There's a fire," Frank said, his voice now sharper. "Everyone needs to evacuate the park." The young men looked at him and laughed. "Fire? Where can you see a fire, old man? Do your eyes even work?" Frank pointed toward the horizon. The smoke was now much thicker and darker. The wind was picking up, coming from the eastern flank. Wind speed approximately 15 miles per hour. "It'll reach here in 20 minutes. The kids looked at each other. They didn't understand what this man was talking about, but his voice sounded serious. Panic sound began rising from the other end of the park. Families had noticed the smoke now. Children started crying, parents frantically gathering their belongings, running to their cars. "Rex!" Frank's voice cut through the park. The dog immediately turned to him, that familiar spark back in his eyes. Search and rescue mode. "Do you remember, old friend?" Rex's posture completely changed. The old, tired animal disappeared, replaced by a trained, disciplined war machine. Tail up, eyes focused, breathing controlled. "What's happening?" The basketball kid was scared now. "Why is your dog acting like that?" Frank didn't answer. His eyes were scanning the park, calculating exit routes. Main road, eastern entrance, emergency exit. But there was a problem. "How many people are left?" he muttered to himself. Rex was already doing a head count. He raised his nose to the air, sniffing. Then he turned to Frank and gave two short barks. Frank nodded grimly. 2 missing. What do you mean 2 missing? One of the young men asked, now genuinely concerned. Rex can smell human scent traces. Frank explained quickly, his military training taking over. Based on foot traffic patterns and current wind direction, there are 2 people still in the danger zone who haven't evacuated. The smoke was getting thicker. You could hear sirens in the distance, but they were still far away. Look, old man, the athletic kid said, you're starting to freak us out. How do you know all this stuff? Frank ignored the question. Rex, sector sweep. Standard search pattern. The German shepherd immediately began moving in a precise zigzag pattern, nose to ground, covering every inch of terrain systematically. This wasn't random sniffing. This was professional search technique. Jesus Christ, one of the kids whispered. What kind of dog is that? The kind that saved more lives than you'll ever touch, Frank said quietly. Rex suddenly stopped near the playground area and gave a sharp bark. Frank moved toward him with surprising speed for a 78-year-old man. What's he found? Asked the basketball player, now jogging to keep up. Frank knelt down beside Rex, who was pawing the ground near a large oak tree. Someone was here recently. Child, approximately 7 to 8 years old. Trail goes toward the old hiking path. How can you possibly know that? Because we've done this before. Many times. The wind shifted again, and suddenly everyone could smell it. The acrid, choking scent of burning wood and vegetation. The fire was much closer than anyone had realized. We need to find that child now, Frank said, his voice carrying an authority that made the young men automatically listen. Rex, track and locate. The dog was already moving, following an invisible trail that only his trained nose could detect. Frank followed, moving with a purpose and speed that seemed impossible for his age. Wait, called one of the kids. Shouldn't we call 911? Already called. Frank replied without turning around. But they're 15 minutes out. We have maybe 8 before the fire reaches this area. They reached the edge of the hiking trail. Rex was moving faster now, his tail rigid with concentration. Every few yards, he would stop, sniff intensively, then continue in a slightly different direction. There, Frank pointed to a break in the bushes. Trail continues into the woods. You're not seriously going in there, said the athletic kid. The fire's coming from that direction. Frank looked at him with eyes that had seen combat, had made impossible decisions under impossible circumstances. Son, that's exactly why we're going in there. Rex barked once, the alert bark that meant target located. About 200 yards into the woods, behind a fallen log, they found her, a little girl, maybe 8 years old, huddled and crying. She was lost, terrified, and completely unaware that a wall of flame was advancing toward her position. It's okay, sweetheart, Frank said gently, his voice immediately softening. We're here to help. I can't find my mommy, the little girl sobbed. We'll get you back to your mommy, Frank promised. But we need to move right now. Rex positioned himself on the girl's other side, creating a protective barrier. His training was kicking in. Protect the asset, maintain formation, watch for threats. As they began moving back toward the park, the wind brought a shower of ash and the unmistakable sound of crackling flames. The fire was much closer than Frank had calculated. How much time do we have? Asked one of the young men, who had followed him despite his fear. Frank checked the wind direction and the color of the smoke. Maybe 5 minutes. That's not enough time to get back. It is if you know what you're doing. Frank whistled sharply, a specific pattern. Rex immediately moved to point position, leading the group along a route that wasn't the way they'd come in. Why are we going this way? Because Rex knows the fastest exit route. He's mapped every trail, every obstacle, every shortcut. Sure enough, the German shepherd was leading them along a path that seemed to cut directly through the woods, but avoided the thickest undergrowth. Every turn he made, every route he chose, was calculated for maximum speed and minimum obstruction. How does he know this? Panted one of the kids, struggling to keep up. Because we trained here, Frank replied. 20 years ago, when this park was designated as a potential disaster evacuation site, Rex and I ran drills on every square foot of this terrain. They emerged from the woods just as the first flames became visible through the trees behind them. The little girl was crying but unhurt. Frank carried her the last 100 yards to where her frantic mother was waiting near the parking area. "Sarah!" the mother screamed, running toward them. "Oh my God, Sarah!" The reunion was brief but emotional. Then the mother turned to Frank. "How did you find her?" The firefighters said it was too dangerous to go in there. Frank was about to answer when a voice called out behind them, "Frank Morrison." They turned to see a man in a fire chief's uniform approaching. He was about 50, with weathered features and intelligent eyes. "Chief Patterson." Frank nodded in recognition. "I thought that was you," Patterson said. "When dispatch told me someone had gone into the woods with a search and rescue dog, there was only one person I could think of who'd be crazy enough to try it." The basketball kids were staring, confused. "You guys know each other?" Chief Patterson looked at the young men with amusement. "Know each other? Son, Frank Morrison trained half the search and rescue teams in this state. He and Rex here pulled 47 people out of collapsed buildings after the 2003 earthquake. They found 23 missing hikers in the Cascade Mountains during the ice storm of 2007. "That's enough, Patterson," Frank interrupted quietly. "No, sir, I don't think it is enough." The fire chief turned to address the growing crowd of people who had gathered. "This man spent 30 years training search and rescue dogs for military and civilian emergency services. He's saved more lives than everyone here combined." Rex sat calmly beside Frank, tongue lolling out slightly, looking once again like just an old dog. But now people were looking at him differently. "Rex here," Patterson continued, "holds the record for fastest victim location in a disaster zone. 47 seconds from deployment to target acquisition. That record still stands." One of the young men, the one who had been most hostile, stepped forward. "Sir, we didn't know. We were just—" "You were being young," Frank said simply. "Nothing wrong with that. But maybe next time, don't assume you know someone's story just by looking at them." The fire department had arrived in force now, and the immediate danger was over. The wildfire would be contained to the eastern woods. No buildings or lives lost. Thanks to early evacuation, as the crowd began to disperse, the basketball player approached Frank one more time. "Mr. Morrison," he said quietly, "I'm sorry about what I said earlier, about you and Rex not belonging here." Frank smiled slightly. "Son, Rex and I have been protecting this community longer than you've been alive. We don't need to prove we belong here, but I appreciate the apology." The young man nodded, then looked down at Rex, who was once again looking like just an old dog resting in the shade. Can I pet him?" "Rex decides that," Frank replied. "Rex." The German shepherd looked up at the young man, studied him for a moment, then gently pushed his head forward. The kid reached down and scratched behind Rex's ears. "He's a good dog," the young man said softly. "The best," Frank agreed. "They all are, when you give them a chance to show you who they really are." As the sun began to set, Frank and Rex walked slowly back to their bench. Tomorrow, people might forget what happened today. They might go back to seeing just an old man and his old dog. But tonight, a little girl was safe at home with her mother. Tonight, no lives were lost of fire. Tonight, two old heroes could rest knowing they'd answer the call one more time. Rex curled up beside the bench, and Frank gently scratched his head. "Good boy," he whispered. "Good boy." In the distance, sirens faded into the evening quiet. The park was peaceful again, as if nothing had happened. But something had changed. Not in the park, but in the people who witnessed what real heroism looks like. That IT doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand recognition. It just shows up when needed, does what needs to be done, and quietly goes back to waiting for the next time it's called upon. Some heroes wear uniforms. Some carry badges. And some sit quietly on park benches, gray around the muzzle, patient and ready until the moment comes when the world needs them again.